Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha. Is the lack of simcha in avodas Hashem, is that a terrible, terrible chet? We find in the Parsha, we find in the Torah, two Parshas of Teichacha. The Torah, in two places, foretells about Rahman al-Islan, the Golus, the Churban, the Teichacha, the admonishment that if we do not keep the mitzvahs of Hashem, the terrible things, Rahman al-Islan, that will befall Klal Yisrael. And there are some differences between the two Parshas. One is in Parshas B'chukoisai, and the other is Parshas Kisovai. Explains the Ramban. These two Parshas of Teichacha are referring to the two Golios. Parshas B'chukoisai is referring to Churban Bayis Rishon, and Parshas Kisovai is referring to Churban Bayis Sheni. As it says in the Teichacha, in Parshas B'chukoisai, it talks about the Avodah Zorah, the Bomais, the Chamonim, the Avodah Zorah, which was prevalent in the time of Bayis Rishon, the terrible Avera of Avodah Zorah. In Parshas Kisovai, it says, "V'hayoim lo'isishmu." If you don't listen to Hashem, lishmar v'las, it says, "Kol mitzvahs v'chukosav." If you don't keep all of them, if we don't observe all the commandments of Hashem, meaning, even though we do and we did observe some of them, we are still taken to task for not observing all of them. That's Bayis Sheni. That's Bayis Sheni, where Avodah Zorah was not so prevalent, and nevertheless, because of the Averis, Rahman al-Islan, there was the Churban Bayis Sheni. How do we reconcile this? That the Parshas B'chukoisai is referring to Bayis Sheni, the Churban Bayis Sheni, with the pasuk in B'chukoisai that says that Tachas asher lo yavadad Hashem lakecha b'simcha. It was because the Churban was because you didn't serve Hashem b'simcha, because you were given so much, and you didn't serve Hashem b'simcha. How do we reconcile this with the fact that, according to the Ramban, that there were all these other affairs that they didn't do? And in fact, we know, Chazal tell us, that Churban Bayis Sheni was because of the affair of Sinas Chinam. And additionally, is not serving Hashem b'simcha such a terrible, terrible avera that we were deserving of the Churban and all the terrible, terrible punishments of the Churban, the Misa, simply because of Simcha? Yes, Ivdu Hashem b'simcha, but is the lack of Simcha, is that in itself the justification for the terrible Churban and the Golus and all of the Yisurin and suffering and Retzicha and everything that ensued from the Churban, from the Golus, from the long, bitter years of Golus that we're still suffering from? Is that the reason? Because we observed the mitzvahs, but we didn't do it b'simcha? What is the pshat in this? What's the explanation here? So let us first try to analyze and delve into the inyan of Simcha. Why is Simcha so important in Avodas Hashem? Why is it so basic and so fundamental? Certainly it's a madrega. Certainly it's a lofty madrega, something to aspire to. But why is it so fundamental in Avodas Hashem? So one reason given by the Kuzari, if a person is Oved Hashem, if he does the mitzvahs and he does it without Simcha, it's a Chilul Hashem. It's a Chilul Hashem. If he keeps the mitzvahs, even if he observes the mitzvahs, even if he's doing and observing the mitzvahs, but if he does it without Simcha, it's a Chilul Hashem. He's not Mechavet Shem Shamayim. He's doing it reluctantly. He's doing it against his will. He's showing you that he doesn't want it. He'd rather not do it. It's not so important. It's not the most precious thing in the world to him. It's a chilul Hashem. Another dimension of the inyan of simcha is explained by the Shloah HaKadosh. The Shloah explains that without simcha in avodas Hashem, without hislavus in avodas Hashem, without enthusiasm and excitement and simcha in avodas Hashem, there is no real achiza in the avodas Hashem. Meaning, the pshat in the Shloah is that people can observe all kinds of mitzvahs. They can have all kinds of conduct. But many times it's superficial. People act in a certain way many times because of peer pressure, or their surroundings, or because it's practical, or there's something to be gained from it, or it's too difficult to do otherwise. There are many reasons, superficial reasons, for people to act in a certain way. But if the reasons are only superficial, if the conduct is only superficial, then they can be easily swayed. And it doesn't have a kiyum. It's not lasting. It's not eternal. It's not permanent. Because it was only superficial to begin with. It can be washed away. And if any reason comes, or if any other outside external force or reason or any kind of pressure comes, it can wash away those kiyum mitzvahs. That conduct can be washed away very easily. And it does not stand the test of time. For the avodas Hashem to be nitzchi, to be permanent, to have a kiyum, it has to reach the depths of the neshama. And only then there's a chibur, there's a connection, there's a bond. There's a bond that will not be broken and will stand the test of time. And that achiza, that bond comes when we're oved Hashem wholeheartedly, b'hislavus, with enthusiasm, with simcha. And then if we're oved b'simcha, we can withstand all kinds of pressures and external influences. And perhaps the pshat in the pasuk is as follows. The Churban Bayis Sheni came about, as is foretold in Parshas Kisovei. That's Churban Bayis Sheni. Because they didn't keep all the mitzvahs. But why didn't they keep all the mitzvahs? Why were they lacking in mitzvahs? They had experienced already Churban Bayis Rishon. They had experienced already the bitter golus. They knew that the nevuah of Yirmiyah, they knew that the nevuah of the Nevi'im all came true. They knew that what the Torah said in Parshas B'chukoisai, what the Torah foretold in Parshas B'chukoisai, if they did not keep the mitzvahs, what were the terrible things that would happen to them. They saw, they knew about that. It all happened. It all came true. So why did they not keep all the mitzvahs? Why could they not withstand the external pressures and temptations? It's because they were not oved Hashem b'simcha when everything was given to them, when they had no real external pressures, when they had roiv kol, when they had everything good without terrible external temptations and pressures and nisyonos and trials and tribulations. They did not have the simcha. They did not have the enthusiasm. They did not have the hislavus, and therefore they did not have that kesher shel kayama. They did not have that permanent bond. And then when the trials and tribulations came, they could not withstand the nisyonos. The reason, the makor, the source of their weakness was that when they had it all good, when everything was good, they were not oved Hashem b'simcha. And then ultimately, when the nisyonos came, when the trials and tribulations came, they could not withstand it, and they did averos. And they had sinas chinam, and they had other averos. They didn't keep all the mitzvahs of Hashem. And that's when there was a churban. But the source of it was that they weren't Oved Hashem b'simcha. To have that connection to Avodas Hashem, to have that permanent connection, for it to be nitzchi, to be enduring, to be eternal, our Avodas Hashem has to be with simcha. Our Limud Torah has to be with simcha. And that's what instills in us that chibur, that connection to the Torah and the Rebbeinu Shalom, and it allows us and gives us the strength to withstand all kinds of nisyonos. In Limud Torah, the simcha of Limud Torah is not an incidental byproduct of Limud Torah. It's part and parcel of Limud Torah. The simcha and islavas of Avodas Hashem is not just a mila. It certainly is an incredible mila. They say over from the Arizal that the reason that he was able to be zoicha to the Sisrei HaTorah, the Chochmah and the Sisrei HaTorah, writes the Arizal, is because of the simcha that he had in the performance of mitzvahs. So it certainly is an incredible mila, but it's also part and parcel of the etzem, kiyum mitzvahs and limud Torah, and that creates this chibur to the Rebbeinu Shalom, this eternal bond to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Just to conclude and illustrate with the Maisa that Rav Mordechai Gifter Zatzal tells the Rosh Hashiva told over. He said in Cleveland he used to go for walks with the Rosh Hashiva Rav Bloch Zatzal. And usually on the walks, the Rosh Hashiva Rav Bloch was very quiet, and he didn't say very much. From time to time he would make an observation. One time he observed to Rav Gifter, he said, he doesn't know that when he comes to the Olam HaEmes, he's not sure if he's going to get schar for his learning of Maseches Nedorim. Because he says when he learns Maseches Nedorim with the Pirush Haran, he gets so much simcha from it, he gets so much joy from it. He gets so much schar from it, he doesn't know if he's going to get schar in Olam HaEmes. So Rav Gifter answered and he said, maybe he gufa. Maybe the reason that you have so much simcha is because of your omal and yigiyah, because you toiled and worked so hard on it, and that's why you're able to derive such simcha from it, and for that yigiyah itself, you will get reward in Olam HaEmes. It's not only simcha, it came simcha through yigiyah, and for that, you'll get the reward in Olam HaEmes. And he said that Rav Bloch was quiet, and they continued on their walk silently. Says Rav Gifter, he says, sometime later he found Kedevorov in the parish of Rav Roman Ahar on the Durham. And we know, as we know, that Novel Rahman al-Slan is also to learn Torah. We know on Tisha B'Av that it's also to learn Torah on Tisha B'Av. Why? Because Yishorim, Kudei Shem Yishorim Mesamchi Leiv, that the Torah gives simchas, Mesamchi Leiv. And so we don't have simcha on Tisha B'Av. The Torah gives simcha. Dr. Rav Roman Ahar, he says that the simcha from learning Torah is part of the etzem limud Torah. Limud Torah is to come to the emes. It's come to the emes of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that creates a simcha in a person. It's not incidental. That is part of the limud Torah. Coming to the limud Torah, learning to the depths of Torah, where we arrive, we derive the emes, the truth, that is automatically brings simcha. That's part of the etzem limud Torah. And therefore, he says, even though normally we say mitzvahs lav lahenes nitnu, that the incidental hanoah, benefit, pleasure that we get from mitzvahs is not considered a hanoah in terms of any isura hanoah. But by limud Torah, it's not incidental. That is the mitzvah limud Torah, is to learn with all our might, our effort, to come to the emes, which automatically brings simcha. That's part and parcel of the etzem mitzvah. So we don't say mitzvahs lav lahenes nitnu. We don't say that the simcha we get from learning Torah on Tisha B'Av would be incidental and not aser. No, it is aser. We can't learn it because limud Torah is simcha. If we learn it properly, it is simcha. And that is what's aser on Tisha B'Av. The simcha of mitzvahs, the simcha of limud HaTorah, creates the bond of limud HaTorah, the eternal connection to avodas Hashem. A kesher shel kayama, that be'ezras Hashem, we will all witness this kesher shel kayama of the binyan bayis shlishi, which will be eternal, which will be nitzchi, which will be forever. B'mhera b'yameinu.